Mr. Pavan Verma, Chief Secretary Mr. Mohanty, Mrs. Veena Rana, Mr. Kesri, and all those present here, members of the IAS fraternity. I'm delighted to be here. This is the first time I'm addressing the association. I have been to the academy many times in Missouri and addressed them in different situations and different capacities. So I'm delighted to be here, especially all of you here are the steerers. You are doing the steering and the shaping of the state. You all will be defining the destiny of the state. Many would have retired. To those who would have retired or those retiring, Mr. Mohanty, what batch are you? 82. So some will be retiring, some will be starting, some will be midway. What is the Madhya Pradesh we want to leave behind? For those who are retiring, what is the Madhya Pradesh you would like to leave behind? For those who are not retiring, who are years to go, what is the kind of state you would like to build? What should be the profile of Madhya Pradesh? When we look at different states, every state has a profile. You look at Maharashtra, you look at Karnataka, you look at Andhra. Each state has a profile. And I've said this, that we really need to change the profile of Madhya Pradesh. A state where people across the country recognize most of all. How many people in the streets of Chennai or the streets of Hyderabad, if you ask him what's the capital of Madhya Pradesh, on the streets, will be able to tell you even the capital of Madhya Pradesh. So what should Madhya Pradesh be recognized for? And that is very important, that we need to build the profile of Madhya Pradesh, and in building this profile of Madhya Pradesh, we will be attracting attention, we'll be attracting investment, and we'll be generating economic activity. I was just hearing them say that there have been changes in technology, but we must recognize from the time Mr. Mohanty, you joined the service in 82, I had already been 2 years in Parliament. It was a different world at that time. Many of you entered the service in a different world. And how do we adopt and adapt to this change? The world you joined service in, the world or the state in which you served will be very different 5 years later. Will be very different. You are having a generation of youth, a generation of youngsters who have far greater knowledge than you have. They have access to knowledge which you never had. And what is the state they think of? What is the life they think of? We've had great problems in agriculture in Madhya Pradesh. In the agricultural state, 70% of the people in Madhya Pradesh are agriculturally dependent. I don't say they're farmers, but they're agriculturally dependent because the kirana shop in the village only works if there's purchasing power of the farmer. So what is the kind of agriculture we need? What is the revolution we need to create in agriculture? 20 years ago we looked at agriculture, the challenge was shortages. Today the challenge is excess. So 20 years ago we were meeting the challenges of shortages. Today we are meeting the challenge of excess. And this excess is only going to increase. How do we meet this challenge? And unless we think now, we've had a generation of rural youth who've gone to engineering colleges, who've gone to institutes, done their management, done their engineering, and they go back to the village. So he's neither fit for the village, he doesn't get a job. वो ना तो गांव का रहा, ना तो शहर का रहा. This is what happens. And how do we convert the farmer, the dhoti pajama farmer, into a jeans and t-shirt farmer? That is what the challenge is. Because, and that can only happen by technology. That can only happen by change practices. Because we can't change the 70%, we can bring the 70% to 65%. But 65% will remain 65%. And that is what we have to understand. We have to understand our own state. There is no state in the country which has the diversity of Madhya Pradesh. We must never forget this. We are a very diverse state. We are the most diverse country in the world. No country has so many religions, so many castes, so many languages, so many tihars. Even the dhoti and pajama becomes the lungi when you go down south. So, this diversity of the country and diversity of our state is how we make this into a positive. Where the country is concerned, the ethos of our country, if you start from Chandragupta right downwards, go to Ashoka, the ethos of our country is harmony. Is tolerance. And it is only this tolerance and this harmony which has kept our country, this ethos of harmony and tolerance, which has kept our country under one flag. The leaders of the world, so many of them have come across the world, they look at awe. They say, India is so diverse, how do you manage it? There was only one country which had this diversity, and that was the Soviet Union, which had the same kind of diversity in language, in religion, in color, and that was the Soviet Union. But where did the Soviet Union go? Why? They did not have that ethos. They did not have that ethos of harmony. They did not have that ethos of tolerance, which our country has. And this is what is most important. Now, in a changing world, how do we look at our state? How we make our state relate to the country? There are enormous challenges we have. The most important challenge we have is of the new generation who are going to be the builders of the future. The new generation of youth. How we generate the economic activity, not necessarily employment. Employment is a component of economic activity which helps them to meet their aspirations. That is the biggest challenge. In agriculture, we can change policies, we go to prices, it's a financial item. It's a financial figure. But what do we do about the younger generation? Every year we are churning out so many youth with such aspirations. Where do we want to direct them? This is not going to be just merely a financial configuration, it's got to be a strategy. It's got to be policy. And in this, we're going to see how we look at new policies. There's been a different government in the last 13 months. I'm not saying it's a new government, now we are an old government. And every government has its own style, has its own system of working. Everyone has a positive, everybody has a negative. And every government has its strength, every government has its weaknesses. It's natural. But how do we now steer Madhya Pradesh into a different direction? Where we want to have a vibrant Madhya Pradesh. We had the magnificent Madhya Pradesh and they said that it will be an economic tiger. Why not? We have the great advantages. We have the greatest logistic advantage in the country, which no other state had. How do we get the maximum juice out of our logistic advantage? With the GST regime, we have a huge 60% of the market of India is around Madhya Pradesh. How do we get the maximum juice out of this? And the only way it's going to happen is we have to change. We have to change in our outlook. What we do has to somewhere change, and how we do is to change. Everything, even in education, what you learn is somewhat different, but how you learn is completely different. So what we do and how we do has to change. How do we attune ourselves? How do we adapt ourselves? And how do we adopt it? Is the challenge which is before us. People's aspirations. I remember when I first came into Parliament and I would go by road to various districts. Nobody was concerned. If it was a Badwara, he gave you a paper. Now, we have to perceive these things differently. Because at the end of the day, all of you are dispensers of justice. Your dispensers of justice is not only the court, which is the dispenser of justice. And justice is not in the form of a legal justice. Justice to that person. And that is the bedrock. We forget. The bedrock of our constitution is liberty, equality and justice. Liberty is not unlimited. You can't be at liberty to do anything you want. Liberty is limited. Equality is also limited. But justice is not limited. That is what we must not forget. Justice is what tempers equality and that is where I think all of you have to change your perceptions. We are having a different political leadership. I cannot finish without talking about political leadership. We are having a different kind of political leadership. I remember in 1980 when I came into Parliament and I looked around. At that time I was one of the youngest members of Parliament. I looked around. We had a different type of people. Now, Parliament has a different lot of people. So there is a different political leadership. Any party, all parties have a different kind of political leadership. That's also evolving. But we must not forget that the interface of the bureaucracy with the political leadership is extremely important. We must not forget that all of you join service the day you joined. You don't have to join again. You don't have to find that berth again. But in political leadership, you have to find it every 5 years. It's a struggle for every 5 years. You have to renew it every 5 years. Nowhere do you have to renew it. In business, you don't have to renew it. In the bureaucracy, you don't have to renew it. But in politics, you have to renew it. I do understand. I do understand the aberrations in this. I do understand the conflicts in this. I've seen far too much. But here, you have the better skill. You have the better skill in creating that interface. The political element, the political leadership does not have this skill. You have that skill. And you have to use that skill. I want to say about change, and I want to institute in Madhya Pradesh 3 prizes. 3 prizes for new ideas on change, with a jury consisting of the 3 past chief secretaries who will choose who gives us the biggest ideas of change. We have a system, we have so many schemes. What is that delivery system? A good scheme, a good yojana destroys itself by a bad delivery system. We have great problems in our delivery systems. And how do we improve upon these delivery systems? How do we have you, wherever you travel, you get 500 applications. Why should these applications come? And you tell the collector, tell the officer, you were told, कर दूंगा मैं. होने वाला तो मुझे क्यों आया? It should have happened in any case. Why should it have to come to me? So what can be done? How do we change this? This is where you have to be sensitized in this, and I do hope that all of you, individually and collectively, will set a new tone. Remember, I said we need to change the profile of Madhya Pradesh. The profile can change if you want it to change. And in that, you will also have to change